Hello, and welcome to The Season, the podcast from FYCit that goes behind the scenes of awards season. I'm your host, Ryland Aldrich, creator of the FYCit app. This is our final episode of the 2024-2025 Oscar season, and we've got something a little different in store for you. To kick things off, we've got a conversation with Johnny Avello, the director of race and sportsbook operations at DraftKings, who oversees DraftKings Academy Awards betting. I chatted with Johnny about how Oscars betting odds are set and how they move throughout the season. After that conversation, we're going to do a little season recap with our FYC correspondent, Tony. And he and I are going to give out our Season Salutes Awards. This should be a lot of fun, so please stick around for that. But that's not all. After I chat with Tony, I'll be joined by a special guest to cap things off with an extra special look at our lightning round answers from the season. As you all likely know, screenings are all wrapped up for the season, as are most of the award shows. The rescheduled Ace Eddie Awards are still to come on March 14th, but all eyes are, of course, on the Oscars this Sunday. Have you filled out your Oscar pool picks yet? If not, maybe you can get some tips from our upcoming conversation with Johnny. Oscar season may just be about over, but Emmy season is right around the corner. The FYCit app will be back for Emmy season with some exciting new features, all the FYC events, and the premium bonus content we introduced last year. If you have any ideas of how we can improve the app for Emmy season, please drop us a line at info@fycit.app or head on over to our website at fycit.app/contact. We'd truly love to hear from you. Now let's get to my conversation with Johnny Avello. Joining us today on The Season is Johnny Avello, one of the most respected and innovative leaders in sports betting world and an early proponent of mobile sports betting. As the director of race and sportsbook operations at DraftKings, one function Johnny oversees is the growing market for non-traditional bets, including the Academy Awards. Today, DraftKings allows wagers on all 23 Oscar categories in multiple states, and Johnny is the mastermind behind how these lines are set and adjusted. His deep knowledge of award season trends, industry shifts, and market behavior makes him the go-to expert on how betting lines reflect the Oscar race. With this year's Oscars coming up this weekend, the timing couldn't be better for Johnny to join us and break down how sports books handicap the race, what moves the odds, and whether the betting markets are a true predictor of who will take home Hollywood's biggest prizes. So Johnny, how's your season?
That's a loaded question. How's my season? It's been a really busy year so far. The NFL and college playoffs just finished, Waste Management People's Open, and then a Super Bowl. But we're looking forward to the Oscars, which are coming up here real soon.
Yeah, you've been making Oscar odds since 1995, I believe, long before betting on Academy Awards was even legal in the U.S. How did you first get into setting odds for the Oscars, and what was your process like back then?
I'm not the first to do it. I worked for a gentleman named Lenny Del Genio, and Lenny was doing the Oscars, and then Lenny left to go to another property up in Washington, and at that point, I took it over. And you're right, it was somewhere around the 95 or 94 area. I made it by actually speaking to some Hollywood executives, getting their opinion. Those guys' opinions were very good. I mean, since they were in the world of movies and knew a lot about it, they were very helpful and happy to help me with knowledge and be able to set the odds. And remember, at that time, there was no bets taken. It was purely coffee table material. I mean, we're just in discussions, having a good time about who's going to win. And I threw some great Oscar parties at some of the properties I worked at around that whole odds-making process.
So when the Supreme Court cleared the way for legalized sports betting to expand nationwide in 2018, New Jersey is one of the first states to allow Oscar betting. What was the conversation like at DraftKings when you were finally able to take actual wagers on the Academy Awards?
Pretty excited about that. I didn't know if that was ever going to take place. I didn't see a path because Nevada certainly wasn't going to do it. And even though PASPA was overturned, we knew that sports were going to be fine taking wagers on, but we weren't sure what we would be able to take in the entertainment industry. Now, remember, each state can elect to take what they want to take. We have a full menu, and if they see something on that menu they don't want to take, they can elect to do that. But if they see something on that menu that they think will be interest to the clients of that particular state, then they may elect to do that.
So betting markets on sports are driven by a lot of data, stats, team performance, historical trends. But the Oscars are a mix of industry politics, personal taste, campaign strategy. How do you quantify something as subjective as an awards race when setting initial lines?
So true. First of all, let's look at some of the things that we take wagers on that aren't played on the field. When an event is played on the field, we actually have a model and we feed that model with data, and that model will give us a good starting point as far as a betting number is concerned. But for things that aren't played out on the field, NFL draft, we have to look at what does a team need. We don't know exactly what they're going to pick, but we have some data and know what the team's going to need. Next coach, who's going to be the team's next coach? I mean, where does the coach feel comfortable going? These are things that we look at. Awards like NFL MVP, or they're all opinion based, but it starts in part with the things they've done on the field. And then there's Oscars, which is totally opinion based. There's really nowhere to look for what they've done in past performances, except for some of the previous awards they won leading up to the Oscars. And so it's purely opinion based and makes it pretty difficult.
Yeah, what are some of those main sources you're looking at when determining those Oscar odds? Are you relying on the traditional awards pundits? Are you looking to industry insiders for their take, or maybe previous betting action, things like that?
Absolutely. Before we can even look at what some of the experts think, we put some of these awards up. Some have been up since August. And so they've been up for a fair amount of time. And there's not a lot out there on who the experts do like. But as we get closer and as some of the awards click in, we obviously know where some of the strength might be. Now, we also use Gold Derby, been using that for years, IMDb ratings, Variety, IndieWire, anything out there that you could possibly scour to find some information on what the thinking is from some of the so-called experts.
Yeah, we had Scott Feinberg, Hollywood Reporter, on the show earlier this season. And, he puts out his Feinberg forecast every week or every couple of weeks. And so many people in Hollywood immediately devour that information just to see how things have moved. Are you looking specifically to some of those top prognosticators like Scott to help drive how the lines move?
Yes, among others. There's many out there who have an opinion. We look at the overall opinion of everyone. We don't take one person's opinion and put that much weight into that. And it's also about watching the movies myself. You go into the movies and watching them. That's the way I used to do it in the old days too, is I have to have an opinion also. And sometimes my opinion may not be as strong as some of the insiders. My opinion is based on what the general public thinks.
When you're watching the data come in, whether it's from the opinions of the prognosticators or anything else, are you feeding it into a model, or is this the sort of thing that you're just watching and keeping all the knowledge up in your head?
It's a spreadsheet. We haven't developed an actual model to spit out an Oscar winner yet. I think that'll probably come. We're doing so much more now with sports wagering, using the latest technology and AI. So there's no reason why there won't be a formula for us to use to get us a closer view of Oscar selections.
We talked a little bit about precursor awards. These are, of course, a big part of prognostication. How important are Critics' Choice, SAG, DGA, BAFTA, and the Golden Globes? Do you look at historical patterns about how these awards have predicted the race over time?
Yeah, remember now the Golden Globe separates the movies. They have the drama and they have the musical side of it. And so, yes, that's kind of like the first major award show that we do look at, and that certainly has some weight. To me, the Directors Guild is really huge when it comes to director, because that has been accurate 90% of the time, as far as I've been using it. And then there's the SAG Awards, where if you see that someone's not even nominated for a SAG Award, what makes you think that they're going to win an Oscar? That's happening in this year in a couple of the actor categories. So certainly do rely on those award shows lead up. You mentioned BAFTA, maybe not so much. Producers Guild, it's different. It's not best movie. They word it a little bit differently. I think it's, outstanding producer. So yes, we look at all of it. And going back to what I said prior is not too much weight on a lot of those categories or those shows, but more weight towards some that have been a good predictor through the years.
So this year we've seen a major shift in the Best Picture race. Emilia Perez was the frontrunner after the nominations came out. Maybe not so much on the betting odds, but the general sentiment was that it was on the rise. But a pretty strong negative news cycle or two has really hurt his chances. How do you decide if a breaking story will have an impact on the race, and what determines when it's time to reflect that in the lines?
The money will dictate, actually. The money coming in on it will dictate if that news out there is worthy, how significant it actually is. In the Producers Guild win, that certainly changed the odds for Endora. That went from, I think, a 5-1 before to minus 175. Now, if you know about odds, that's we'll put up one and win 5, and the other is put up 1750 to win 10. So right. That's a significant change. And so that certainly did make a big change on that particular movie. Now, Anora is minus 250 and a pretty strong favorite. And The Brutalist was 5-6, and now that's plus 250. So those are the two that may have made the big shift. It appears that the winner would come from one of those two, but doesn't necessarily have to.
Right. And so at that point in the race, the money coming in is shifting things more than any individual news event or something like that.
In that particular case, yes.
Yeah.
Now, we do have to react. Let's go back to what we were talking about, some of those award wins. We do have to shift on those. But when it's a news cycle, not necessarily so.
So everyone knows when you're betting on sports that the outcome is yet to be determined, but voting closes for the Oscars a week and a half before the actual event. So how does DraftKings ensure the integrity of the market at that point?
Well, we rely on Price Waterhouse to not divulge any of the information, and they really have done a good job not to do so. Through the years, there have been some so-called steam on a certain movie or director where a lot of money's come in and it didn't pan out. So I don't believe anybody really knows that result. There's maybe 2 people know it,
right?
But it's not divulged and it doesn't get out there. So I think they really do a great job of hiding it.
Aside from information being leaked, are there other challenges in these types of betting markets where something actually has already happened, where the results could be determined in other ways?
I don't think so. There's always going to be what we call sharp or sophisticated bettors. And it's not that sophisticated bettors know the outcome. It's just they have an opinion on what value might be in the odds. And so you'll see that sometimes. And we're okay with those type of bets because we've done a significant amount of homework. So we're pretty comfortable what our odds are, certainly at that point when we're getting towards the tail end.
So this year is the first in a little while that has had a sort of historically difficult race to call for Best Picture. Do you feel like the betting markets are maybe a more reliable predictor than the traditional punditry when it comes to this stage of the race?
What I've noticed through the years is when you see a favorite that's anywhere from even money to a $2 or so, it's still vulnerable. That doesn't lock it in. When you see favorites that are minus 1,000, which is 1 to 10, those usually hold up. Now, there has been some surprises there too, but for the most part, those strong favorites tend to get there. What I've noticed in categories with probably have had some of the bigger upsets since I've been doing this would be the supporting actor and supporting actress. But those categories now over the past couple of years, they're about as the strongest favorite as any other has been on the normal top 4 markets. So this year it looks like those are already the clear-cut favorites are head and shoulders above everything else.
When you're watching Oscar night at your historically big parties, are you ever just like had your just socks knocked off by some of these upsets, considering you know these lines so well?
Yeah, that happens. Crash was a pretty big surprise that year. I think Crash was probably in the 6-1 range. Didn't expect it, didn't see that coming. So it happens. Just because we follow the experts did their homework, doesn't mean we were right. The voters are the last say. And the way they do it now, remember, is, you get points for each movie. And one that can get 50% is going to be your winner. But if they don't know one movie gets 50%, then they just keep eliminating movies. And so there's a different way they structure how they do pick for best movie now.
You mentioned that a lot of people who are betting on the Oscars are more of a casual, having fun with it. But have you seen a pickup from the more seasoned gamblers really getting into the Oscar races?
I can tell you what I've seen a pickup of is females jumping on board. We noticed that during Oscar season, we have an uptick in signups from women. I think what it comes down to is this is something they say, okay, well, football, that's your game, but
right.
Oscars, this is my game. Now you're in my wheelhouse, so I know a little bit more about this.
You've done odds for everything from Dancing with the Stars to the hot dog eating contests. Where do the Oscars rank in terms of public interest and action compared to other entertainment bets?
Well, remember all those other odds that we're putting up, Dancing with the Stars and American Idol and Survivor and everything else, there was no betting on them at the time. So since we've been taking bets now on entertainment, that goes back to 2019. We opened up the sports book in August of 2018. So the first awards show that we did was the Oscars in 19. But we've done Emmys, we've done Grammys, and the Oscars is the biggest right now of any entertainment odds that we're doing. Looking
at the full field this year, where do you think we're most likely to see some upsets?
Well, in the Best Actor category, Adrian Brody, for The Brutalist, he's the favorite at -175, but I wouldn't be surprised if Timothée Chalamet overtakes him, because I thought he was great. He was, he sang all the songs himself, and maybe he was even a little more than he had to be for Dylan. And in the actress category, Fernanda Torres is not nominated for a SAG, so I can't go down that deep. So it's a Mikey Madison for Nora or Demi Moore. And since Demi Moore's won a lot of stuff leading up to it, I think she's probably in pretty good shape. But Kieran Culkin, he is such a strong favorite because the money that came on him, he's -1,400. That's $1,400 to win $1. Could Edward Norton, a complete unknown, win that at +750? That's a heck of a price. Possibly, yes. And that's best supporting is Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. Amelia Perez is nominated for 13. It's got to win something here. So most likely that's your winner. If there is an upset there, Ariana Grande for Wicked at 4-1 is a pretty good price. I wouldn't go down much further than that because I don't think Felicity Jones is another one for The Brutalist. It's not SAG nominated. So that's the way I kind of size those categories up. As far as the best picture, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boy, The Substance, I'm Still Here. No real shot for those four. If Honora's going to get upset, it's probably going to be The Brutalist. Conclave was up there for a bit, but it's lost a bit of steam and a complete unknown. I don't think it'll get there. Unless Amelia Perez, sometimes they have that kind of night where they win everything. That is a terrific price if you think that can get there at 25-1. And then the last major is the director and, Sean Baker for Nora. Even though he's not that strong of a favorite, I think he's in pretty good shape because of the Directors Guild.
Great analysis, Johnny. Thank you very much. A last question for you. Stepping back, looking at the broader picture of entertainment betting and betting on award shows, where do you see us going from here? Do you think we're going to start seeing a lot more open markets on different kinds of entertainment aspects?
We do try. Like I said, we put up some other categories. I used to do the Tonys, but we haven't explored that yet on our site. We can also do props within an event, and we've done that here too. So you could say, what's going to win more awards, the Brutalist or Nora? You can do those type of props. You could put up over unders on awards won for the night, 4.5 over under, 5.5 over under. So there are some other areas that you can put up betting numbers within the event itself.
Yeah, do you think we'll ever see a final name mentioned in the in memoriam montage? That's always a fun one on the prop sheets.
Yeah, I think we'll stay away from that one.
Johnny Avello, thank you so much for joining us on the season.
You're welcome.
We're back, and I am joined one more time this Oscar season by our FYC event correspondent, Tony Miros. It's been an amazing season, Tony. Thanks so much for joining us each and every week.
It's been lots of fun, Ryland. Honestly, when we started this whole thing, I'm like, what is this going to be about? But I think I've had a ball listening to you doing your interviews. It's been great. We've had lots of fun this season.
Yeah, we've got some more fun stuff in store for this week. But first, we've had a wide range of guests on the season, from Oscar winners to guild leaders, festival directors, awards experts, and of course, you, Tony. We'll get into some specifics of the screenings, events, and venues. But first, any broad reflections from the season as a whole?
It's funny because not only as an FYC goer, but as a person who's interested in the awards themselves, it was good that it was a very wide, open awards season overall, because there was no real front runner throughout the season. We kept guessing. And like the other day when I was watching the SAG Awards and Conclave won Best Ensemble, I'm like, oh, okay, well then forget it. I'm going to toss out all my preconceived notions about what's going to win Oscars. That's the fun thing about award season. You can see different people and what their opinions are. And then sometimes you don't like it. And sometimes you're surprised. And sometimes you're, yay, I'm on the right team. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that's been most notable this season is how open it has felt. I mean, certainly you go into Oscars sometimes with a couple frontrunners, but it really feels like there have been quite a few frontrunners that have risen and fallen. Also, just it feels like there are a lot of categories that you could see going a few different ways. So that's going to be one of the things I take away from this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And also as an FYC goer, I think the talent that were out campaigning were genuinely enthusiastic at the events. They were there, they were promoting, they were open to speaking to attendees, they were open to taking photographs. Back in the day, it was kind of weird for people to approach a star because you didn't want to get in their way because you knew they were going to get wonky or their security was going to get wonky. But as the years have gone by, they understand it's part of now what the FYC events are about. Like people do want to talk to them. They want to hear their opinion. They want a memento of their evening and they want to take a picture with them. And they're much more open now than they used to be. Literally, I've had somebody to say, this is why I'm here. So I'm happy to take a picture with you.
Right. For sure.
But I got a little complaint, just a small smidge, a tiny, I couldn't let this go without one little complaint. These studios really have to put up their game next year. I mean, we need some waters or some snacks or a popcorn or I don't care, jujubes, raisinette, something. Throw something at us to watch your movie because 3.5 hours, people, I was excited about the intermission. So that tells you a lot. Make it fun. Make it fun. Give me some popcorn. That's all I got to say. So, Ryland, because you were like the guy talking to all the people in charge, would you have any more thoughts about the season?
Yeah, thinking about the openness and just how many great movies have been in the race this year. I think back to Telluride, where, the season really starts for me, and how many of the movies that are in contention now I saw there. I saw Conclave, Honora, Amelia Perez, September 5, Nickel Boys, The Apprentice, all at that festival. A handful of those, of course, played at Cannes, but it really is the kickoff for award season that if you can get to that festival, you can really see so much. Something else I saw at Telluride was Maria. And of course, Maria didn't quite make it. I thought for sure walking out of that screening that it was going to be Angelina's year. And yeah, I saw that Ed Lockman won the ASC award last weekend. So it didn't totally get shut out. But it is strange to think about the movies that didn't quite make it, like Maria. Piano Lesson I also saw there that really didn't go anywhere. And then you think about, as the season was rolling along, what we all thought, oh, could this come out of nowhere and be a contender? And that was true for A Complete Unknown. That was true for The Brutalist. That was true for some extent with Nosferatu as well, but not true for some films like Gladiator 2, when everyone was getting excited to go see that at the premiere and didn't really have the awards push that I think Paramount would have wanted. Do you have an overall most memorable moment of the season, Tony?
Yeah, I do. For me, the craziest Q&A discussion I attended was for Emilia Perez here at the Paris Theater in New York. The reason why it's so memorable is because, first off, we had a French interpreter because Jacques, the director, does not speak English. He doesn't speak Spanish. He only speaks French. So we have a French interpreter. And then we have director Julian Schnabel, who's moderating the Q&A, and he's giving us some artsy, out of this world questions for the director, who's answering the last question while he's asking one other question. Everybody was confused as hell in this Q&A. That was the most memorable because I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what he's asking. I think the guy who's translating is so confused. He's answering the wrong questions. It was the most bizarre evening I've had.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Do you have one?
Well, my most memorable moment, I would imagine, is also a little bit Emilia Perez based, and just the implosion of that campaign, or particularly of the actress campaign. And it's going to be what people think about when they think back on this Oscar season, I'm sure. Not so much a moment as a series of moments over a week or two as that all erupted. Not a good, memorable moment, but certainly what I'm left with at the end of this campaign. Well, let's see what happens at the Oscars. You never know. Maybe it turns it around big time.
You never know. I mean, I liked it. I thought Emilia Perez was great. But again, I don't know. Don't have a French interpreter with that guy who's asking crazy questions. Not good.
Well, let's get to some more fun stuff. We decided the most fitting way to end award season is to hand out some of our own awards. We're calling them our season salutes. So as our self-described FYC event junkie, there's nobody better to pick the best of from this season than you, Tony. So for each of these, you've chosen a runner-up or two and also a winner.
Yeah, it was hard, Ryland. And, I had two cities to think about at the same time. So it was a lot. It was heavy duty, I got to tell you.
Our first category for the season salutes is a big one. It's the best screening room. Tony, what are your runners-up for the best place to sit your seat and watch a movie?
Well, I got to tell you, I was torn on this one. I love the London Hotel in LA. It's a great place. It's tiny. You always have a good time there. And they give you popcorn and they give you drinks or whatever. And then there was a Soho House, Ludlow screening room in downtown New York City, which I thought was just those seats were so comfortable. So those are my two runner-ups.
Before you get to the winner, interesting you chose Ludlow House. Having seen movies at all the Soho houses, are they really that different?
They're slightly different, but Ludlow House, I don't think, maybe it's the color palette that I thought was much more comfy because it was like a beigey plant-based pattern on the cushions and on the seats. I felt a little bit more fancy at the Ludlow House than I was at any other Soho House this year.
There's 4 or 5 Soho House screening rooms in London, so maybe you'll have to make a trip there next year for FYC season.
Oi, there you go. I need another city to go to. That's not such a bad idea. I like that, Ryland.
All right, well, those are your runners-up. What is the season salute for best screening room?
Best screening room this year, the winner, hands down, is Bryant Park Screening Room in New York City. Loved Bryant Park. Loved the location. Very easy to get to. It's a nice, great hotel, old hotel. But when you get down, you press one button on the elevator. It's for SR Screening Room. You can't get lost. And it's very comfortable seating. Great for Q&A. There's a little space there for a reception if you want. Love the Bryant Park Screening Room.
Great. Well, I'll have to make it out there next season. All right. Our next category is best reception venue. What do you think is the best place to have a nibble after a screening?
My runner-ups, one's in LA and one is in New York. The one in New York is the Times Center, where the New York Times is. And it is a great venue. It's perfect for a reception. It's got different rooms. So downstairs is the reception, upstairs is the screening. And There's a huge space upstairs, but then you've got the DGA on Sunset Boulevard in LA, which is lots of fun. I've been 100 times to that venue. And when you get the right party promoter who puts it on, that space is brilliant. You can have venues. You can have a VIP room if you want. And, it's right there on Sunset Boulevard. It's much easier.
Easy parking too.
Absolutely.
All right. And the winner for the season salute for the best reception venue?
Well, again, it's New York. I'm sorry, LA, but it's New York. It's the Whitby Hotel screening room. I went to 2 events there where both had receptions, and you felt like you were at a very, very exclusive screening of whatever it is you went to go see. The screening room itself is very well put together, very comfortable seats, and you've got 2 parts where you could, hold 2 different receptions if you wanted to. It's just very lovely. And, you have access. You have lots of access. That's where I got my selfie on the bathroom line with the Hulk himself, and I had a wonderful time at that venue. So thank you so much, Whitby Hotel, for doing a great job this year.
Our next category is a little bit more subjective, considering you can't go to every reception during award season. But what was your season salute runner-up for best reception spread?
Again, I'm broken in 2 because Fanny's at the Academy Museum in Los Angeles, they do a great job. Honestly, whenever the Academy Museum has an event, Fanny's is a great space. It's a great location. It's right on the bottom level of the Academy Museum, and it's easy access to the street and to parking. And also the food is fantastic. So I love Fanny's. I also love, again, the Whitby Hotel screening room. They give you candy and popcorn and water beforehand, before you go into the theater. And then you're sitting there having your nice little snacks. You watch your screening, and then they have fast food, open bar reception. So they both shine for me. One in New York, one in LA.
But there can be only one winner. So the season salute for best reception spread goes to
the Times Center, again, at the New York Times. It's just so spacious and it's so well organized. And the buffet dinner that we had that night was fabulous. It really was. I did not leave hungry. Nobody left hungry. As a matter of fact, I think they had so much food that they were begging people to take leftovers. And that never happens. So the Times Center, you did a great job. Congrats.
Our next category is best Q&A.
Q&As are all based on, number 1, the moderator. I know I've seen a lot of moderators and I criticize them sometimes because they get lazy. Moderators get lazy. And I'm going to be the first one to say, and I've said it to my friends, you don't start the interview or the process with the same tired, boring question you always do. And if you've ever sat next to me during these Q&As, you know exactly who I'm talking about. They open up the same Q&A with the same question, and it's tired. And please don't do it anymore.
What's the question?
The question is, how did you get your start in this industry? That's the same tired question every time. It's laziness. Anyway, it's the Q&A itself. Who's in it? What they said, how open they are to talking about the film and what it was about and why they were happy to do it and why they're happy to be there. It's a lot of things that you have to think about with best Q&A. Honorable mention, though, goes to Thelma at Harmony Gold. Loved that film. I did not know what to expect, but June Squibb, love her to death. She was there. The director, writer, editor, same guy, was there. The producers, the composer, casting director. I mean, you had a slew of people on that stage who was giving you a little bit of everything of how they made the film. And it was wonderful. So yay to Thelma. And then my other runner-up is The Last Showgirl at the Landmark in Westwood. That was a great Q&A. I loved the moderator, Carla Renata from the Curvy Critic. She's fabulous. She controlled it. She loved it. She's a fan of Pamela Anderson. You could tell she was a fan, but she was not a fan gushing so much that she wants move on. You know what I mean? But you have the director, Gia Coppola there, and the writer and the actors. It was a great, fun Q&A. And that was a small enough venue that you felt like you were in, an intimate space with them.
So the season salute for best Q&A is a tough one after those two.
It's a tough one. But again, it has to do with who's on that stage. And I got to give it to Wicked at Harmony Gold because you had the director and all the film stars were there. And it was the very first screening of that film all season. Everybody applauded as if it was in a musical. Every single person in that film, in that movie theater, was thrilled to be watching Wicked for the first time. So that Q&A came out. The director came out. Cheers. We stood up for Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. I mean, and Jonathan Bailey was there. He's been busy doing theater in London, so he hasn't been out to things. So we were lucky to see him. And Jeff Goldblum was there. It was a great, wonderful Q&A. I'm not a fan of the moderator. I'm going to say it right now, but she had nothing to do with it. Nothing at all, because it had to do with Wicked and the people on that stage.
Wow, controversial choice, giving the season salute to a moderator that you don't even enjoy. But we'll move on. The next category is Best Celeb Sighting.
Ooh, this was tough. When I saw this on the list, I was like, now how am I going to do this? So I had to break it up. I'm like, is this a person that was on the stage that I was excited about? And I thought, not really, because that's kind of what they're there for, right? This, I thought, was the best way to do it. A celeb sighting of somebody who was at attendance or that I didn't expect. So I left it at that.
Sure.
So runner up, Talia Shire. Oh my God. She was sitting behind me at the screening for The Last Showgirl. And it took every fiber of my being not to go, yo, Adrian. I swear. I love her in The Godfather, in the Rocky movies. Love Talia. Love her. So I was thrilled to see her at the event.
Well, if that's the runner-up, then who's the winner?
The winner is Mikhail Baryshnikov.
Wow.
Oh my God. I mean, talk about superstar. And I know most people are like, who? Listen, this man came to America from Russia. He blew up the stage on ballet in New York. He has been a star forever. And it's very rare that you see a star like that. You know what I mean? Like, you never expected him to be at a screening. And here he was at a screening. And I'm like, wow, you never know what to expect when you go into a New York screening. And, that night I had a slew of celebrity sightings, but he was the one that kind of blew me away because I never, ever, ever expected to see Baryshnikov at a FYC.
Well, my late grandmother was a big Baryshnikov fan, so I'm sure she would have been very impressed as well.
Great. The grandmothers love me. They sure do.
All right. The next category we have is the Best FYC Event.
I came up with 2 honorable mentions. Thelma at Harmony Gold, mainly because the cast was there and they were so lovely. And second, because they gave us a record, an album. So that was a good little giveaway, which they never do anymore. They never give anything away. And then A Real Pain at the Daryl Zanuck Theater in the Fox studio, because I love that space. And Jennifer Grey was at that panel. And it was just so much fun. Ryland, when you go to a movie studio and you go see a screening, you just feel so special because all the things that were shot in that studio, and you walk down the street and you're like, ooh, that's Soundstage 8. I know what happened in there. Maybe that's just me, but whatever. I love going to a movie studio to see a screening. And so A Real Pain was a real good one.
No, it's always fun just to even drive onto the lot to go to the screening. So I hear that.
Yeah. And also I had a runner-up this year, which was Wicked at Harmony Gold. Great event. All the stars were there. We had a great time. But the winner had to be Hard Truths at the Whitby Hotel.
Wow.
They just blew it out of the water for me this year. I swear, I was like, this is what an FYC event should be. You know why? Because I stumbled into an Ampus FYC event. That's what it was, I think. And so then I had Academy members in there, and it was lots of fun. And they had food galore and drinks galore, and I got selfies, and it was a hell of a night. I love that one.
Yeah, that's funny. You mentioned that a movie that I don't remember you being particularly impressed by, but what was it about that event that really stood out?
It was not my favorite film, but I'll tell you why. Because you have Brenda Vaccaro, and you have Edie Falco and Baryshnikov, all these people who are there celebrating the director who I understand they love, and I get it. And the actress was great too in Hard Truth. She did a great job. Anyway, to make a long story short, it was at the Whitby Hotel. Fancy, loved it. And the food was good. The past hors d'oeuvres were good. There was an open bar. You got candy before you got in. Overall, it had every element that I think makes a good, fun FYC. It had it all. So that's why I gave them the win this year.
Wow. So our final category is a big one. I'm going to join you for this one. This is the season salute for best campaign. Now we don't know who will win the Oscar, so this isn't exactly just us guessing about that. Really, it's about who was able to capture the zeitgeist and give their film the best shot at winning awards.
Well, okay, I'll give you two that I thought they did a great job. And even though I might have wanted to avoid one of them the whole time, I couldn't because they kept coming back and coming back. Amelia Perez, was everywhere, and I thought they did a great job. All the actors were around. The director was around. You saw a lot of ads for it. It was on Netflix. It was very accessible to those of us in the industry who, might not have thought about seeing it, but then we really felt it was an event. Amelia Perez was everywhere, and if you didn't know about it, you could find out about it really easy. They made it very accessible.
Yeah, I think that movie hit a few speed bumps along the way. I feel like it might be hard to give the best campaign award considering what happened towards the latter part of it. But certainly, they put their full Netflix might behind it. It really looked like a front runner for a lot of the season. And yeah, Netflix clearly, they still want to win the best picture.
They do. They'll get there. I have a good feeling they will. But again, it's like that was so unforeseen, all of that stuff. So maybe they learned a little something about it this next time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Anora, you couldn't escape Anora. I didn't know anything about Anora. I kept hearing the word Anora. I saw the billboards on Sunset Boulevard. And I think they did a really good job of at least letting us know, hey, come see this. Talk about this. Let's discuss this year. So I thought that was good. And they've done well so far in the awards. I don't know what they're going to do for the Oscars, but they've done really well. So I think that the word spread and people talked, and now here we are with them as a contender for the Oscars.
Yeah, I think we should throw Timothée Chalamet into the mix. He was really, capitalizing on his fame to run a non-traditional campaign. I mean, he was singing Dylan tunes on SNL. That's pretty impressive. It wasn't the very specific Oscar playbook you usually get, but I think it really worked. And he won the SAG Award, so he's in the mix for Oscar night for sure. I'd like to throw an honorable mention to Focus as well for Nosferatu, considering that was really a horror movie, not the typical Oscar kind of film, but the crafts in that film are so phenomenal that they deserve all the plaudits they've got for that.
They did. And, it was unfortunate it was at Christmas, which wasn't very holiday-esque, but they did a great job. But again, I know the studios put a lot of pressure on FYC goers to see their stuff, and especially when they have a huge, huge big budget film. And so Wicked, I think, was it swept you up. It was everywhere. It was everything. It was people, little kids, sing-alongs. People were like, don't sing in the movie. There's going to be a sing-along coming soon. And then you had Bloomingdale's. There was like Wicked, stuffed bears. It was Wicked everywhere. It was a wicked, wicked, wicked season. I got to tell you, they did a great job.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a movie like that, when they have an unlimited budget, can really go for it. And the might of the NBC Universal machine to have all those big stars on all their shows. But for me, I think it comes down to two films that really punched above their weight. One is The Substance, and particularly the campaign for Demi Moore. She was able to have that fairy tale awards season story that you really want to have. And her performance is incredible in the film. And of course, another film that is not a typical awards movie. It's a body horror film released by Mubi, a relatively small distributor. The director, Coralie Farjat, just had a wonderful campaign. Every place she went, she was loved. She's a very compelling director. I'm sure she's got a really bright future. It's hard for me not to say that film, and specifically that campaign, should be recognized as the best campaign this season.
You have to hand it to Demi Moore. She had that wonderful, she deserves it because she dreamt it, because her life, she had a hard time. She was, bubblegum. She was not important. And now she's back. And we love a comeback story in Hollywood. Love it.
We sure do. And then my final film on my list here is one that you mentioned. And so I think that says something, and that's Anora. That film, that campaign, Neon, Sean Baker, they really did not put a foot wrong from beginning to end. And that's a long campaign. That film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and it has stayed a big part of the conversation from very beginning. Other films came, they became frontrunners. People said, what happened to Anora? Did it peak too early? And here we are just a few days away from the Oscars, and it's the favorite. So it's hard to deny that is a really, really excellently run campaign. Plus, it's not a typical Oscar bait kind of movie either. It's a comedy, it's risque. And now here we are really looking like a strong contender going into Oscar night.
Yeah, well, we'll see, Ryland. I'm very excited. As I said, it's been this we don't know yet kind of thing. And so I think that's what's making the Oscars this year that much more exciting.
Well, the film we both mentioned was Anora, so I think that's only fitting that we give the final season salute for best season to Anora.
Sure, I think it's great. Anora did a great job. Let's see what happens on Oscar night.
So that's a wrap on Oscar season. But as we all know, that means it's Emmy season already. Tony, I think it's safe to say you are maybe even more of an FYC event junkie when it comes to Emmy season. So let's end with a few Tony tips for the FYC events for this upcoming Emmy season.
Okay, well, I got a couple of tips for you people out there. Make sure you have a snack before arriving at the FYC event because, you get there an hour before the venue opens, you're waiting in line, then you have to watch the screening, then you're listening to a long Q&A, and you don't want to get into that hangry zone, where your stomach starts growling before you hit the buffet line. So you're sitting next to me in the theater, and I hear this grumbling coming from your stomach. I'm going to give you a look.
Solid Tony tip. What else you got?
Pace yourself when you got 2 or 3 FYCs in a day, because you know what? That sounds fun and it's lots of fun, but then you're eating all these carbs and then you get tired and listless. And by the time you get to the last event, you're falling asleep in the screening. So, pace yourself.
Do you have an all-time record for most FYC events you've been to in one day?
I was thinking about that. It was 4 in one day. I just couldn't say no. It became like this thing, like I had 1, 2, and then there was the third one, which I was like, well, maybe I just won't show up because I want to get some rest before the last one. But I had to because I didn't want to get dinged, because they ding you if you don't show up. But I was so tired that day, very tired. I have a couple other tips here.
Okay, let's go.
Don't push and shove your fellow TV Academy members out there. You're on the food line. I know you're hungry. We're all trying to find where the end of the line is. So please tell us, no, you got to go around the corner. That's where the line is. I'm fine to go all the way to the end. But when you're pushing me out of the way, that means you don't care about me. And I'm sorry. We're all there for the same reason. So be nice. Okay. Also, don't be rude to the talent. I got to tell this every year. I tell it to people that I know personally. I'm like, why can't they just be polite? Like say, thank you and please. And, don't go up to them asking them stupid questions. I'm sorry. Your question is stupid. You can tell them what you thought of the event or of their performance. Don't start asking them to read your script. This is not the time or the place to do it. Okay. I know that you never have the opportunity to talk to Robert De Niro, but he's not here to read your script. So don't do it. And then my perfect FYC event selfie with a celebrity scenario is this. You walk up, you say hello. How are you? Compliment them on their performance or the show. You were great. Loved it. I can't wait to see the next episode. Then ask them nicely for a selfie. They say yes because they know they're there for that. Take your selfie with them. Okay, take 2 in case you don't look good in the first one. And then you say thank you and you move on so that the next person can do the same thing. It's very easy. I don't understand why some of you make it such a big deal and then you become a pain and I have to complain to the person behind me saying, could this person please move faster? I mean, seriously. So think of others. That's my last tip.
That's wonderful, Tony. Thank you so much for such a great set of tips and for such a great season. We'll see you out on the town.
Happy Emmy FYC season, everybody. It's the happiest season of the year for me, at least. So have fun, and I'll see you on the line in the FYCs. We'll see what happens.
Thank you, Tony. We'll see you out there. And we'll be right back with our final lightning round of the season. We're back again, and now I'm joined by a voice you haven't heard before, but someone who is integral to bringing the season to you each and every week. Matt Bellany has his producer Craig, Howard Stern has his Baba Booey, and here at the season we've got producer Steve Pachenik. Together with his partner at Spellbinder Media, Andy Shore, Steve is the driving force behind getting these episodes into your feed each week. So Steve, how's your season?
Yeah, it's been a busy season, Ryland. Lots of guests scheduled and questions written, interviews conducted and edited, and here we are at the finale. So definitely excited for Oscars next week.
So Steve, you've crunched the numbers on all 18 episodes of the season, and we've got the results from our lightning round questions that we've asked each guest.
Yeah, did a little data dive here. We asked each guest the same questions, and I can now report that out of the favorite award show to attend responses, 40% of our guests unsurprisingly said the Oscars, with a few people saying the Golden Globes and also the Spirit Awards got a couple of votes. But by and large, Oscars is the heavy favorite there.
Yeah, no big surprise there.
For favorite film festival to attend, we had a more diverse group of responses. 26% said Sundance, but a handful of people said Telluride, and a few also said Toronto, Middleburg, and Camerimage also got a couple of votes.
Yeah, Middleburg, Camerimage, two festivals that have a lot of love, but no surprise that it's Sundance and Telluride at top.
I think the next one is probably our most lopsided lightning round question. Emmy season or Oscar season? Unsurprisingly, 70% chose Oscar season.
Do you think if we were doing this during Emmy season that we would have had more responses for Emmy season?
No. There's a reason that it's Hollywood's biggest night. I think everyone's looking forward to the Oscars.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, another lopsided one. We asked, do you prefer to watch screenings at home or in the theater? 64% prefer to go to the theater. That's probably how it should be. Although there were a couple of people who did say they prefer watching from home, but one of them was the guy who runs the screening platform, Jason Dedrich.
Yeah, and a couple of people said both, I remember as well.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I like to watch at home sometimes too.
Yeah.
So our next question was, if you were accepting an award, would you be more likely to cry or swear? 67% went with cry, so we had some softies on the season this year. Few people said swear, a couple people said both, but resounding victory for the criers.
Yeah.
And last piece of data analysis here. At an award show, do you prefer theater or table seating? Again, 64% chose table seating, a handful of both, and then only 14% went with the theater.
Interesting. Considering that the Oscars are a theater, a big swing for the people who would rather go to the Oscars but would rather sit at tables.
Yeah, exactly. So we also had a few questions that were more opinion-based. I thought I would just read what I thought were my favorite responses and then have you, I guess, pick a winner.
Okay.
So for best award season prediction, we'll start off with Hugh Fink, who predicted that there would be no Lifetime Achievement Award for Harvey Weinstein. Christina Ruthier predicted that Amelia Perez would be nominated, and she was right 13 times over. And Vanessa Hope predicted that Honora might win, which at this point feels like a pretty good prediction.
Ooh, yeah. Well, we don't know if this is going to come true, but I do think that the winner has to be the No Lifetime Achievement Award for Harvey Weinstein from Hugh Fink.
Yeah, certainly no guarantees of that just yet, but it's looking good. All right, favorite past appetizer at a screening reception. We had some really great responses. Stephen Pizzello gave us piles of pierogi for fans of alliteration out there. Katie Rich gave us chunks of Parmesan.
I don't know if I've ever seen chunks of Parmesan at a past app.
Yeah, well, let's get a trend started because that sounds pretty good. Christina Ruthier and Jenny McCormick both said champagne, which feels like an appropriate response.
Solid.
Scott Feinberg and Chris Albert both said pigs in a blanket. And maybe my favorite response was Deborah Scott. She said she tries not to eat because it spoils the lipstick.
Well, if there's one moment from this entire season of the season that I will remember giggling the most, it was piles of pierogi. So that's a clear winner for me.
Yeah, love to our friend Stephen Pizzello and his piles of pierogi. Next up, we asked, what is one post-award season ritual that you have? Lots of guests went back and rewatched all the movies from the season all over again. That was a common response. Katie Rich immediately starts making her early Oscar predictions for next year. Christina Ruthier prefers to stay in bed and watch a BBC Pride and Prejudice marathon. Delphine Figueres is in line for some spicy margaritas right away. And our friend Volker Bertelmann tries to disconnect from everything awards and take care of his health, which probably makes the most sense. What's your pick?
I do like the Pride and Prejudice marathon, but I'm going to give the award to Katie Rich, jumping right into the early Oscar season predictions for next year.
Yeah, I'd actually love to see that. I wonder how early she puts it out.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Best least favorite award speech cliche. We had Stephen Pizzello and Chris Albert both mention the laundry list of collaborators, the list of names that never ends. Katie Rich and Scott Feinberg both mentioned being unprepared or when someone doesn't write anything and just wings it. Jerry Rojas doesn't like when anyone reads their speech with their head down. He wants to see the faces. And this was my pick. Hugh Fink doesn't like when people refer to their kids as their greatest work. And I can get on board with that one.
I like Hugh's effort as a comedy writer of actually coming up with a good one there. I don't know if being unprepared or not writing anything is really a cliche. It's just being unprepared. So yeah, Hugh Fink, definitely their kids as their greatest work. And I think we need to add the follow-up to that, which is telling them to go to bed.
Yeah, classic. All right, well, since we've been listening to you ask the lightning round questions all season, I know you haven't had the chance to answer them, and I thought it would be appropriate as we wrap up our season finale to put you through the paces here. I'm also, since you know what these questions are going to be, and it doesn't exactly meet the criteria of a normal lightning round, I'm going to throw a couple of curveballs that you won't be anticipating.
Oh boy. All right.
But let's start it off with one that you've heard a lot of. What is your favorite award show to attend?
Well, I'm not going to be too original here. It's definitely the Oscars. I will give an honorable mention to the Independent Spirit Awards, but only if they bring back their commercial breaks, which give you a chance to do a little socializing.
What is your favorite film festival to attend?
Again, it's hard to be too original. For a long time, this would have been Sundance for me. It holds a special place in my heart. But these days, it's a clear answer, and that's Telluride. There's just no other place that you can see all the awards films and then, have a great time, low pressure. Cannes is difficult. It's a difficult festival. Telluride is as easy as it comes.
Do you prefer Emmy season or Oscar season?
Oscar season. I'll go ahead and do the no follow-up that everyone who answered that question did.
What is your first Oscars memory?
Wow. Okay. Really searching the memory banks here. I don't think I really grew up watching the Oscars. I remember watching some music awards as a kid and being excited to see those. I remember watching the MTV Music Awards the year that Blind Melon won. But Oscars, it's hard to remember anything before Titanic, like a lot of people.
Yeah, I was going to say my first memory is Billy Crystal with those huge, musical numbers that seem to parody every film of the season.
Yeah.
But I think that was Titanic, actually, so we're probably on the same page there. All right, what is your post-award season ritual, besides obviously taking a break from this podcast?
Yeah, well, it's getting the app ready for Emmy season. But this year, I'm actually headed to South by Southwest. It's nice that the Oscars moved back before South by Southwest. They overlapped the last couple of years, so you could only do one or the other. But this year, heading to Austin and eat some good food, see friends.
Awesome. What is your favorite past appetizer at a screening reception?
Ooh, well, a good slider is hard to beat, but I'm going to go with something new and say a good Chinese pork bun. If you get those little bows, those are delicious, and you can eat quite a few of those. All
right. Do you have a least favorite award speech cliche?
Oh, I have so many least favorite award speech cliches. But I do think that I've thought about just about every time someone has said something on this podcast is when someone pulls out their phone and starts to read the speech off of their phone. That is faux pas.
Do you prefer to watch FYC screenings at home or in the theater?
I do like the nuanced answers that we got to the few people who did say at home. And I mean, I'm realistic. You just got to try to watch the movies when you can. Yeah. So you certainly are going to have to watch some of those at home. But choosing between the two, clearly in the theater.
Right. And at an award show, do you prefer theater or table seating?
Again, the answer of depending on the awards is probably true, but that's not really fair. So I will say, yeah, in the theater. Here's the problem. If you sit at a table during an award show, chances are you're drinking a lot more. So the experience of the awards is better taken in when you have to duck out to have your drinks because you just can't drink quite as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, if you had to rewatch all of the top contenders from this season, which one would you most like to rewatch with Tony?
I got to give it to Wicked on that one. Not that I have, not that I'm. That would be my first pick if I was rewatching it alone. But it would be fun to watch Wicked with Tony.
Wow. Okay. What do you think was the biggest surprise from this season?
Biggest surprise? I mean, is it fair to just say that there was really no obvious frontrunner going into the Oscars? I mean, now we can sort of say we're standing here and it looks like Anora is a frontrunner, but we would not have said that a couple of weeks ago. So that's the biggest surprise overall.
Yeah, and we were talking about it. I mean, when we had Scott on the podcast, Scott Feinberg with the Feinberg forecast, was it September 5 at the top of the list at that point?
Yeah. It was.
And I mean, throughout the season, we've seen Amelia Perez, September 5, The Brutalist, Anora, all sort of in the front of the race with, and Conclave somehow mixed in there once in a while too. It's like, yeah, it really has been wide open this whole time.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, but the shakeup in the Best Actress race, I think, is a pretty big surprise as well, seeing both Angelina and Nicole Kidman shut out and then having such momentum behind Demi Moore. There were some question marks at the beginning of the season if Carla Sofia Gascon would be competing in Best Actress against Zoe Saldana, if they would move Zoe or Carla to supporting actress. It really played out a little bit differently than I thought it would. It probably was a smart move by Netflix in retrospect. Zoe looks really locked for Best Supporting Actress. Not so much for Carla, but yeah, seeing Demi Moore have this great moment, it's a big, big surprise.
For sure. Another one that feels like forever ago, but before Gladiator 2 comes out, it seemed like everyone was talking about how Denzel Washington was a lock for supporting actor. And then he doesn't even end up getting nominated.
Yep. Less of a surprise when you just see that campaign didn't go anywhere. But regardless of the film's campaign, I did think that Denzel's performance was worthy.
Oh, yeah. No, he was really good. The rest of the movie... Okay. Who's someone that you would have loved to have interviewed on the season this year, but we weren't able to? Maybe someone that, we talked about or we tried, but it didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, I'm really impressed by some of the interviews that we got. Definitely exceeded my expectations. Awesome that we got 2 Oscar winners, a bunch of nominees, some really interesting people who could talk about the nuts and bolts of awards. So very happy with that. The one interview that I wanted really early would have been to get Daniels to come on and talk about their amazing campaign for Everything Everywhere All at Once. They never replied to the email.
Yeah. So if you're listening. All right. Last question. You know what's coming. What is one, at this point, very late stage award season prediction that you're willing to make?
Honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to fill out a Oscar prediction list this year, but I think... looking at the field, the thing I feel best about is Sean Baker winning for Best Director.
Yeah, he's definitely got the momentum right now. That feels pretty safe. Well, Ryland, that is the end of your own lightning round. So thank you for a great season.
Thanks, Steve. And that's a wrap on the season for Oscars 24-25. Thanks to Johnny Avello for being here today, and a huge thanks to Tony Miros for joining us each and every week. Thanks to all the wonderful guests who have made time out of their busy schedules to come chat about awards season. And of course, the biggest of thanks to Steve and Andy for their hard work this season. Did you enjoy the podcast? Would you like to hear more? Please drop us a line at podcast@fycit.app. You can leave us a review on your podcast app and follow us on social media at FYCit app. Don't forget to visit FYCit.app to sign up for our newsletter, download the FYCit app, and stay up to date on everything happening this award season and next. Until next time, I'm Ryland Aldrich, and thanks for joining us on the season. Remember, at FYCit, award season starts here.